Well, hey guys, welcome back to the classy channel where every day is a golden moment in time. So I've actually had some cool things recently pop up that I wanted to mention to you. First off, Metazar Lifting, the website's coming along phenomenally well. I wish I could show you more right now, but that's still kind of in the progression of things. So I will be sending out future updates on that shortly, but I will tell you the video intro to the website on the main page is sweet. I'm focusing on every little bit in detail to capture that golden era culture. So very excited. I will show you more on that soon. It is coming along phenomenally well though. Secondly, I saw on Nick's Power and Strength YouTube recently, he released a new update actually that really caught my attention. The Ben Weider Natural Pro. Now this is very interesting concept, guys. I wanted to pass this by you before I got into the main discussion, that the IFBB is looking, from what I see, to create the first time ever Natural Pro qualifier. So in other words, it looks like it's broken up into two different categories. We have the Natural Pro and then we have the Natural Pro, our IFBB qualifier. So basically it looks like it's broken up into two different segments. The second one giving the chance to qualify for the actual IFBB Pro League. So this should be very interesting given the size of the organization. I think if this successfully works out, all the kinks and everything, I think for natural athletes this would be a huge step in the right direction. It would be a huge outlet because, as you well know, natural athletes generally have smaller organizations. Like I participated in the INBA, PNBA, which is really cool, as well as the OCB down in Tampa, Florida. But this is like the first time where they actually have a huge association and a platform for natural athletes to go. The biggest issue, and I've ran this through my Instagram and we've had quite a bit of a community chat going on this already, but according to a lot of the sources and stuff, the hardest part is going to be trying to shuffle through the true naturals, or natties as you want to call it. So that's going to be the biggest issue, and as well as trying to get through certain barriers, since this is going to be huge and all the natural athletes are going to want to dive into this, which is great, but it is going to cause a big congestion unless they have a filtering system to really go through. So that it's from what I understand, it looks like it's going to be in late September. The website is still being constructed for this, but you can probably check it out. You can go to Google and see for yourself the dates, but it looks like September 20th and 21st. So, but anyway, so that's cool. But moving on to the main point today, I wanted to go into Larry Scott's routine. This bodybuilder was really great. And I wanted to he competed in later years, but I wanted to include this in the 1950s bodybuilding series simply because he got quite a few tips and tricks from Vince Gironda, which I covered in the previous video. He actually helped train Larry Scott, so I wanted to kind of tie this in together. But the number one thing that many people know Larry Scott for was his arms, his arm development. That was probably one of his signature specializations for him, particularly his image. So I wanted to cover specifically just a few of his arm training techniques that I think you guys would really like. I've tried them out myself, and I'll tell you right off the bat, they are phenomenal. They really, really work well. So diving right in, first the triceps. So one of the first tricep exercises that I read up on him, and this guy was known for really testing uniques or like special techniques and stuff, which actually once again bounces off of Vince Gironda's idea of, he really experimented with a lot of different angles and variations to see what best fit and what worked the most efficiently for his muscles. But one of the big tricep movements that I ran into not too long ago was the lane barbell tricep extension. So obviously a lot of people know skull crushers and stuff like that, where you're just bending at the elbow and doing, kickbacks and stuff like that. That's a very common technique. So what was unique about this is that it was kind of a variation between skull crushers, a narrow grip bench press, and a French press all at the same time. So in a sense, it gives you all the best of the world, and it actually takes off some of the tension off your wrists, because that was one of Larry Scott's things that he really focused on, was trying to find efficient tricep movements that would take that tension off the wrist, because a lot of times people will run into wrist problems simply because of doing common exercises. So This was a very unique variation. I've tried this out in the gym myself, like I said, but basically what you're doing is you're basically kind of doing a skull crusher, but you're bringing and you're moving your arms back at the same time. You're letting them kind of fold in. So you're basically doing a skull crusher movement while doing like a pressing movement all at the same time. And what that does is, rather than keeping the elbow in a strict fixed position where it's putting tension on the elbow over time, this is kind of giving that elbow some relief, but also stretching out that tricep head. So this was a very unique exercise that I tried out recently, and I noticed an immediate difference with having less pressure on the elbows, and it's really good at isolating, and it's a big, in my opinion, a big tricep movement. So you're not technically just isolating by itself, but it's like not like a specific part of the tricep, but the whole tricep in general. So that was a really cool movement to check out. Secondly, really good bicep movements. Now this is very different. A lot of times people know bicep curls as like doing incline or sitting straight up on a bench doing curls, standing curls, stuff like that. But something unique that I have hardly seen much nowadays in the gym, and I mean, you may or may not have seen other people do this, but it's basically a lying flat bench variation of the curls. So you're actually gonna lie on your back, and what Larry Scott did is basically he flattened his back out on the bench. He would put the barbells or the dumbbells right by his sides, having them dangled to a certain degree. But what was unique about this exercise is, given the angle sitting on a flat bench, it's constantly putting tension on your biceps at the very bottom part or the eccentric part of the movement, which is very unusual because a lot of times with bicep curls, once you get to the bottom, you lose most of that tension. Well, this, it kind of basically maintains that tension at the bottom of the bicep head. So in a sense, it actually really hits the lower part of the biceps. It's more so for like the lower middle part of the biceps. Now you can still get a good peak contraction at the top, but the majority of the tension is at the lower part of the movement. So it constantly applies tension on the biceps, where a lot of other bicep curls simply won't if you go all the way down. So this is a really good variation. It's definitely been one of the most stimulating bicep movements in my opinion. I've done it, and I can tell you I have felt it because I'm always looking for what, you know, really activates and pumps up the, you know, certain muscle groups. That's the basis of bodybuilding, is finding what works best for you. And lastly, this is actually kind of basically pulled from Vince Gironda's movements, basically doing a bent over barbell bicep curl. So instead of doing your typical standing straight up and just curling the arm up to the top of your chest, what you're doing is you're bending over and having basically your back at an inclined angle basically. And what you're doing is you're pulling the bar up towards basically your nose area. You can pull it maybe up to your forehead, and what it does is it really places special emphasis on the biceps. So you're taking basically the back movement out of this, and it's kind of a form of a concentration curl, but you're really taking the back out, so it's putting extra focus and more isolation into the bicep heads. This can really help with developing that peak. Of course, some of that's genetic, but this can actually help develop that peak for people, especially with shorter bicep heads. So I thought this was a really good exercise, and like I said, this carried over from Vince Gironda. I consider it more of a finishing movement simply because you can't go very heavy with it. It's more of like a fine, detailed isolation movement, but I will tell you, it definitely, because of the way the gravitational forces go on hanging and forward with the back, you're really putting a lot of stress onto the biceps and arms specifically. So that's a very good exercise to try out. I definitely recommend it. Alright guys, well that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I just wanted to kind of briefly cover some of his unique training techniques. If you would like me to go into more detail in other areas, please do leave it in the comment section below, and be sure to leave a like if you liked this video. I'm going to be continuing the series. This is part 2, so I'll eventually be going on to another video, maybe of Steve Reeves or Reg Park. Like I said, if you would like to leave a comment, I would be happy to hear you out and see what kind of video content you would like to see next. But that is pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much guys for watching, and remember that every day is a golden moment in time. This is Mad Class. Cheers.